talk about the other side of global warming, the side that you don't usually hear. I'm going to go through some facts and talk about their reliability and how carbon dioxide influences the greenhouse effect, and also the consequential water level rise. So first off, there's this panel called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that was appointed by the UN's scientists and politicians, things like that. And they come out with reports on a pretty regular basis that a lot of people make the decisions on about how the climate's changing and so forth. So they're a pretty reliable source, and they use NASA scientists to do a lot of their research, which again is a pretty reliable source. But about a year ago, NASA came out with a report that said that 1998 was the hottest year on record, and that 2006 was the third hottest year on record. And shortly after that, towards about the end of the summer of last year, just some random guy basically on the internet looked through the data that they used in the report that they made, and he realized that they actually made a mistake. And NASA agreed that they did make this mistake, but that was only a small mistake. That was only about 0.15 degrees Celsius. That was the difference. But that mistake changed some of the results that they had. 1934 became the hottest year on record, and 1921 became the third hottest year on record. And this just goes to prove that there's a lot of human error involved in making these assessments, and also that we're not really at an alarming temperature right now, that this temperature has already happened. During the 1930s, the Dust Bowl years, it was a hot decade. There's really no problem with the temperature that we have right now. Next, let's look at carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is known as the most important anthropogenic greenhouse gas in our atmosphere, which is a completely true statement. But anthropogenic means that it's man-made, and there's very few greenhouse gases that are man-made. So carbon dioxide is the most important man-made greenhouse gas. But overall, the greenhouse effect, the most influential gas that's present is water vapor. Water vapor contributes 95% to the greenhouse effect. So that leaves only about 4 or 5% left over to carbon dioxide that can be attributed to the greenhouse effect. Now if we look at how carbon dioxide gets into the air, 97% of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere is naturally emitted through volcanoes and decaying plants, things like that, and also the ocean. The ocean is a huge contributor to it, because carbon dioxide is dissolved into the ocean, and as it heats up, it releases more, it becomes less soluble. So all the carbon dioxide, which is about 100 times more present in the ocean than it is in the atmosphere, that it basically evaporates up in the atmosphere, so the oceans contribute a lot. So if you do a little bit of math, which leaves 3% of carbon dioxide is man-made, 3% of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So if you do a little bit of math, you take 5% of carbon dioxide that's attributed to the greenhouse effect, and then 3% that man-made, that humans put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The human contribution to the greenhouse effect is about 0.12%, which is actually very, very small. So next, let's look at water level rise. Water level rise is one of the big issues about global warming. Polar ice caps are going to melt, and it's going to increase the sea level, and it's going to, put countries underwater, islands underwater, and cities underwater. Well, if we look at this graph right here, this is a graph of sea level in the Maldives, which are a cluster of islands, about 100 different islands in the Indian Ocean. And this is showing sea level there. Right here, this line that's going across is where the level is about now. And we can look back, it goes about 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 years before present. You can see that it's fluctuating pretty greatly. It's gone up to a meter above where it is now. Come down, it's come up, and everything. And during this entire time, people lived on these islands. There's nothing, the islands weren't sunk, anything like that. It's completely inhabitable. Also, you can see down here, it starts to come down, right here. The sea level at these islands in the past 30 years has gone down 20 to 30 centimeters, which is quite contradictory to some of the reports. Now, the way that people determine the polar ice caps contribution to sea level rise is they take satellite pictures from, just straight down, and they see that it's at a certain point. And then it recedes, in their next picture, and they can determine by how much it recedes, how much it contributes to sea level rise. And the 3 major polar ice caps, one in Greenland and 2 in Antarctica, eastern and western Antarctica, their contribution to sea level rise is about 0.05 millimeters per year. Now, when I saw that number, it was kind of an arbitrary number. I didn't really know what it was, so I did some research, and I found that the thickness of this piece of paper is 0.1 millimeter. So the contribution from polar ice caps per year is half the thickness of this piece of paper. It would take about 1,000 years for polar ice caps to raise sea level 5 centimeters. Now, in conclusion, I'd just like to say that our influence on global warming is basically negligible. As you can see, Earth goes through cycles of warming and cooling, and we're not, this line right here represents where we were at the beginning of the 20th century, our temperature. You can see at several points in the past it's been much higher, and people have been, once again, they have no real influence on humans, no negative influence. During this medieval warming period, the Vikings were actually a farming culture on a place they called Greenland, which shortly after that we went into a little ice age, and Greenland got covered over with ice, so they had to move into North America. So that's just the idea that I'd like to share with you, is that our impact on global warming is very insignificant, and that the results from global warming are not as devastating as a lot of people like to tell you.
Thank you very much.